Hi everyone, this is our channel, Around My Story. Please like, share and subscribe.
Falling in love with a knight in shining armor riding on a white stallion is the dream of every girl. I would want him to be tall, blonde-haired, green-eyed, handsome, and strong. Imagine him along with me if you can. But what I never expected in a million years was to actually meet my knight in shining armor. Lend me your ear and listen to my knight's tale. My name is Meredith, and I am 17 years old. I live with my mom and my little sister Susan, who is 3 years younger than me. Susan and I fight a lot, as sisters are wont to do. She is more beautiful than me. I am short and fat, but don't blame me. You should blame my mother for being an excellent cook. She used to work in a famous restaurant. You can't imagine how tasty her food is. Mom uses me as her laboratory rat or guinea pig. Whenever she cooks any new dish, she has me try it out and give her my opinion. As a result of all my taste testing, I've become an obese food addict. I know that my obesity may be an obstacle in finding my heroic knight. My best friends are Ellen, Selena, and Mary. My first date was with a guy named Mark. He was a crazy one. Torn clothes, long, dirty hair, a furtive manner, and his paranoid eyes were always darting around, looking everywhere. At our first meeting, he gave me a silly present that, when open, sprang a fake frying pan into my face. My next meeting was with Michael. He was subdued and weird. On our first date, he sat silent for 2 hours and barely spoke at all. All my friends' matchmaking attempts failed miserably. Then Ellen suggested that I open a Facebook account and try to find my dream mate online. I didn't like the idea at first, but I took a chance, opened an account, and shared some personal information about myself and my interests. My first friend request was from Mark. Yeah, that Mark. I blocked his request immediately. I received more friend requests from various people, some interesting, some plain and boring. I kept waiting for my knight on a white horse to send me a friend request. Then one day, I got a friend request from a boy named Joaquin. I visited his Facebook page and saw that he was handsome and active in sports. I accepted his request and sent him a message to say hello and waited all night for his response. Just when I was about to lose hope, he surprised me and responded. I tried to control myself even though my mind was already racing ahead and planning our wedding. We chatted online that day for around 3 hours. I told him about my family, hobbies, etc. But eventually he had to excuse himself to go to an exercise class. However, he promised that he would continue our chat later. I sent him a rolling on the floor laughing emoji and asked, "Are you serious?" He replied, "Of course, I want to get to know you better." I called my friends and told them everything. They advised caution, but I didn't listen to them. In my mind, I had already fallen in love with Joaquin. I clutched my phone, waiting for his next message with bated breath. I figured that I should probably let him know what I really looked like, a fat food addict, before we got too far into a relationship. When he got home, he sent me a message, and I asked him about himself and his family. He told me about his dreams, his family, and his dream girl. He told me that he wasn't interested in a girl's figure at all. The important thing was her character. We agreed to meet the next day. I was excited. I called my friends immediately and update them on my news. Later, I received a message from Joaquin stating the time and place of our upcoming meeting. I chose some chic clothes and got ready to go. Mom saw me and was surprised that I had dressed up so. Susan laughed at me. "She looks like she's going to a restaurant," said my darling little sister. I announced, "I am going on a date, Mum. I met someone on Facebook." Mum said, "Okay, have a good time, and come back and tell us all about it when you return." My heart was beating in my ears as I raced to our meeting place. After I arrived, I sent Joaquin a message telling him that I was waiting for him outside. He replied that he had prepared a surprise for me and that I should come inside. So I hurried inside to see what surprise he had planned. My mind ran wild with possibilities. When I entered the place, I saw my friends holding up a banner with my name on it. Ellen said, "Don't be upset, Meredith, but your surprise is that we are Joaquin." They had played a prank on me as a birthday surprise. Oh, I was so angry. "Do you mean to tell me that Joaquin, the love of my life, was all a hoax? You are not my friends. You are devils. But then Ellen opened a box and showed me its contents. A nice, big, plump, glazed blueberry tart. I stopped my angry ranting. My mouth closed. I became silent and calmed down. My heartbeat rate slowed. They all hugged me. They said that I was a beautiful girl, and they had just wanted to make me happy for my birthday. I was stuffing the blueberry tart in my mouth when the waiter came to take our orders. I looked at him with a mouthful of food. He was so handsome. I mumbled, "What's your name?" as I was chewing my mouthful of blueberry tart. Try again, as they say.
I don't know where to begin. I don't want to live alone. I'm fed up. I need someone to talk to laugh with, to play with. I've been lonely since birth. My name is Bella, and I'm 10 years old. And this is my story. I lived with my parents in a nice, quiet neighborhood. My father was an engineer, and my mother was a housewife. Father used to travel a lot, but my mom always stayed home with me. Father was always busy. Whenever I asked him to play with me, he'd play with me for a while. Then he'd get a phone call and leave me by myself. Mother was always worried about me. She feared everything on the street, from friends to neighbors. My neighborhood didn't have any kids for me to play with. My parents used to fight a lot. I often saw Mother with her face colored blackish blue. Whenever I would ask her about it, she wouldn't reply. I didn't have any friends because Mother didn't want me to have any. I guess she was afraid they would hurt me. I don't know. One time, my parents were sitting together, and I asked Father why I didn't have any brothers or sisters. He told me to ask Mother, but Mother would just sit there silently, without answering. Later, there came a time when Father grabbed Mother and began beating her. I tried to pull him away from her, screaming, "Leave her alone! Let her go!" He slapped me hard, and I fell down. The last thing I heard before I lost consciousness was my mom screaming. I woke up later in the hospital to see my mom crying. She asked me if I was okay, and I nodded. When we returned home, my father wasn't there. I asked Mom where he was, but she simply said that he left on a very long business trip. I was feeling a little sad, but Mom surprised me with a doll. This was the first time that Mom had ever given me a doll. She said that doll would be like my little sister. I hugged it tightly and said to it, "Nancy, you and I are going to be the best sisters ever." Mom often left me with Nancy when she had to go out to do business. It was okay though. I felt that Nancy could understand me whenever I spoke to her. Time passed quickly. One day, Mom came home tired and went to sleep on the couch. I made a tent in my room where I collected all of my toys and played with Nancy. I was speaking to Nancy and telling her how beautiful she was and how I felt lucky to have her as a sister. Then I asked her, "Nancy, do you know why Father left us?" Miraculously, Nancy answered me, saying, "Father left you because he never really loved you to begin with." I was shocked and took 2 steps back. Then I said with a trembling voice, "Nancy, you can speak?" Nancy answered and said, "Of course. Can't all dolls?" From that moment on, Nancy and I lived in our own private little world. We didn't let anyone know about this. It was our secret. Once, when we were sitting alone, Nancy said to me, "Bella, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" I asked. Then she said the strangest thing. "You have to leave this world because you deserve a better one." That didn't make sense. Actually, it felt more like a threat. It frightened me, and I called for Mom. When she came in, I told her what Nancy had just said to me. She replied saying, "Nonsense, Bella. Nancy is just a doll. She can't talk. Maybe you're just tired. Get some sleep." So I tried to sleep, but Nancy wouldn't let me sleep. She left me alone until midnight, then she woke me up. She put her hand over my mouth and whispered, "Please listen to me. Don't scream, okay?" she said. "I know all your fears, your father's cruelty, your loneliness, your love for me, how your love and belief in me transformed me from a toy to a sentient doll. I really love you, Bella, and I want you to be happy." Her words calmed me down, and I said, "You're right, Nancy. So what do we do then?" She explained her plan to me. In 2 days' time, we'll run away from home to a place called Toyland, where we'll meet some great friends. Whenever Mom was busy with work, I would speak and laugh with Nancy. And whenever Mom would enter the room and ask me who I was speaking to, I would laugh and point at Nancy. I could see in Mom's eyes that she was beginning to worry about me. One day, as Nancy and I were preparing our stuff to escape, we were looking at a map we had prepared. Then, unexpectedly, Mom came into the room. She saw the map and asked me about it. I looked at Nancy, and she gestured with her eyes that I shouldn't say anything. Seeing this, Mom took Nancy and threw her into the trash can. I screamed and pleaded. That was all I remember.
My son killed me. Yes, you read that correctly. I am not a ghost or an evil spirit that needs rescuing. I have a brave heart. My name is Megan, and I hope to inspire you with my story. I lived with my father and my sister Marlene after the death of my mother, who died from an illness. Though I was only 18 years old, I became responsible for taking care of my whole family. I did everything for them, like cooking, cleaning, washing, etc. My father was a great man, and he did his best to make us happy. I supported both my sister and my father. We faced a lot of problems together, illnesses, financial problems, school, and the like. But there came a day when I had to make a life and death decision at my young, tender age. I fell in love, as any girl my age tends to do. My sweetheart turned out to be loved my neighbor, a guy named Dave. We had grown up together, and we shared everything. Love, sadness, jokes. Our dreams had evolved as we grew up too, so we decided to marry. He knew all about my life circumstances, so he chose a flat near my family for me. We had a nice party and celebrated with our families and friends. Every day, he proved himself to be a responsible man. He loved and respected me, and I him. Finishing my studies was one of my dreams, and Dave supported me in every way to achieve it. But my biggest dream was to have a baby. But sometimes life just isn't fair. One day, while cleaning the house, my heart began beating rapidly, and I couldn't breathe well. I was barely able to call out to Dave, who came immediately when he heard me cry for help. I had had this symptom before when I was younger, but I never told my father because I didn't want to worry him. Dave took me to the hospital, where a doctor said I had a serious heart condition. And not only that, I was pregnant too. Pregnancy and a heart condition do not a good combination make. So we had to choose between the baby's life or mine. My father and Dave asked me to abort the baby, though they tried hard to persuade me. I resolutely refused. I agonized a lot during my pregnancy. My father and Dave were so worried for my safety. My father and Marlene left their flat to live with me. In addition, Dave cut back on his working hours to stay with me. The day came when I went into labor. They took me to the hospital, where the doctor checked me over and pronounced that my condition was so serious that I wouldn't be able to survive the childbirth. My family and I were shocked. I held Dave's hand and told him that I was strong enough to survive this. Dave hugged me, crying tears like a river. I was so afraid, but I did my best to hide that fact. I looked to my protruding belly and said to my baby, I want you to know that I sacrificed myself for you. You had better grow up to be a great young man. I love you. Then the baby started pushing its way into this world. The scene fades to blackness. The baby is born. Suddenly, a year later, a birthday party is being held. The baby is now 1 year old. A woman is singing with the baby and her family. The woman looks at you and winks. Megan says, "Haha, fooled you. I lived through the childbirth. Sometimes life gives us a second chance, but you have to be willing to accept the risk."
Our feelings are always hard to control. We are humans after all. Sometimes we do things we can't explain, just because we feel that way. I had a student named Daniel, a sweet and innocent child. I was prepared to do anything for him, but don't judge me just yet. First, let me tell you my story. My name is Jolene. I'm a 21-year-old math teacher at a primary school. I live with my sister and my mother. My house was next to the school where I work. I love teaching, and I like teaching the students in creative ways. They loved me, and I loved them. Daniel was a special student, though. Our story began at the start of the new year. It was the first day of school. I missed all my students over the summer break. I missed them so much that I stood by the door to welcome them back. Before I started my first lesson, Mr. Smith, the student affairs officer, knocked on the class door, with Daniel hiding behind his back. Mr. Smith greeted the class and asked them to greet Daniel, but Daniel was too shy and didn't move. So I went over to him to take him by the hand, but he pulled his hand away, which embarrassed Mr. Smith. I asked him to greet his classmates, so he went and he stood in front of the class and he said, "Hello, I am Daniel." Then he went and he sat at the very back of the class. He didn't talk much with the other kids. He didn't like to interact with anyone. Daniel always looked sad, and I thought to myself, he's only 8. What could possibly have made him that way? I tried to get close to him, but he resisted all my efforts. Sometimes he looked like he was hiding some big secret, and later on, I learned what it was. One night, when I was surfing the social media, I came across a horrible news story about a jealous husband killing his wife and another man right in front of his son. The child had been none other than my new student Daniel. Reading that sad story, I started understanding why Daniel was acting that way. I decided to try brightening his life a little. Every day, I would buy a small present and put it on his desk. At first, it had no effect, but slowly he came to love that. During break time, I would sit beside him, and we would share food together. I would get him involved in class activities. On his birthday, I arranged a surprise party with his class, his grandmother, and myself. He was so happy that day. After the party, he hugged me and he told me that he loved me. I hugged him tightly. He was not just a student to me. I treated him like he was my own son. He told me that he wanted to call me mother, and that made me so happy. After his grandmother died, he came to live with me. We faced a lot of problems together, but I followed his success in life with pride. Daniel is all grown up now. He's graduating from the Faculty of Engineering. I am so proud of what he has made of himself.